this is Carla from Written Word Calligraphy. Welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited because today we get to work on a free worksheet. I will put it in the link in the description so you can grab this worksheet. And I will be doing a little crash course learning about the letter U. So yes, we're going to learn all about U. And the practice drills, which are the little components of this letter to put it all together, and then of course also writing the letter U. So it's a little crash course on modern calligraphy, which is a type of calligraphy where we use a pen, a nib, and ink, and kind of use the traditional tools to put your modern spin to it. I'm really excited about it, and I hope you guys are too. So first, let's get started with the tools you need. So for the tools that you need for this tutorial, you'll need the worksheet printed. This is printed on the HP 32-pound paper. It's going to be in the link in the description. I have here my Nico G nib as well as my oblique pen, also available in our shop. This is our little inkwell with our Sumi ink. This is the Moon Palace ink. I put it in a dropper bottle because I like to use a dropper bottle to apply ink onto my nib. Over here on my inkwell. The inkwell is not necessary, but of course it's lovely to have. And if you don't have these tools, that's okay. As long as you have your sheet printed out, you can also use a pencil. I like using lead holder pencils, but of course you can also use a regular pen. I love these skinny pens from Le Pen, or you can also use a brush pen. For modern calligraphy though, I find that a thinner brush pen like this Podinoski pen, which has a really small tip, is what you could use best for practicing on a smaller sheet like this. So if you have a pen and nib, you'll want to make sure that you put the nib on the flange. This is an oblique pen, so it allows to put the nib on a slant so that when you're writing on a slant, it's a little bit easier if you're right-handed, okay? And I've already prepared this nib, meaning I put a little bit of ink on this nib and I've used a paper towel to wipe the ink off, and that helps prepare the nib for writing. If you don't do this little step, the ink will just slip off of that nib. So this right here is what the slant guides are and kind of what they're for. So you see there's a lot of lines happening here. This one here is the baseline where the small letters sit, like this letter U part here. The X height is the height of the small letters. The secondary baseline is where the tail sits. So this part is a little bit of a personal preference. For this one, we're learning the U that I've personally written. And these lines up here, we're not using them this time, but this one is our ascender line, which is how tall the taller letters sit, like a letter G, for example, and the letter G, this hits right here for the descender line. The slant guide is this angle right here. So when I'm holding the pen in calligraphy, you're actually holding the pen where the nib is facing, is parallel to this slant, okay? And then this here is a unit. So this is the distance between these two slant guides, and it's a general letter width. So not all the slant guides have this exact width because everybody kind of writes their letters a little bit differently. But for today's exercise, we're going to use that as a guide on how wide it is going to be. So in terms of a crash course on holding the pen, you want to make sure that you're holding the pen about 0.5 inches from the end, and you'll want to hold the nib so that it's facing the slant this way, and the angle of your nib is about 30 degrees. So that means that you're holding the pen kind of at an angle. It's not too high, it's also not too low, so it's somewhere in the middle. So the point of that particular, these particular angles is because the tip of the nib opens and closes as you're writing. So, and whenever you're going down, you're actually increasing pressure, and when you're going up, you're decreasing pressure. So these are the two main strokes that we're going to be looking through in this letter. And the thing about modern calligraphy, it's similar to learning a lot of different skills in life. Recently, I've been teaching my son how to write, and I find that teaching them in different strokes definitely helps them put things together. So there's instructions here on how to write the letter all together, but you can also break it down stroke by stroke, and that way when you put them all together, you'll create the letter U. So the first one here is the leading line, which is a very, very light stroke going up. So it's called an upstroke. So you're going to put very little pressure going up. So as you can see that the tip of my nib here is very light, and it's going, there's not a lot of pressure with it. So it's not opening up. However, when I go here for the underturn, we're actually going down and up. So you can see that the tines, which are these metal pieces here, are opening and closing. So you can see that when I'm going down, it's opening it up and closing. But there's also a transition point here. So you're going to be reducing the pressure about 4/5 the way down and then going up with very little pressure. So you're going to repeat this movement again and again. And lastly, we have the stem. So similarly, we want to increase pressure right at the very top, and about 4/5 the way down, you'll want to decrease pressure when you hit the secondary baseline, and then go up with very light pressure. So as you can see, all of these 3 strokes are about 1 unit wide. So we're going to practice in that length, okay? And then finally, we're going to put them all together to make the letter U shapes. And then you can also practice with them on their own. So I like to apply my ink on my nib like this with the tip of the dropper bottle and swiping it so that it reaches the very end of the nib right here, okay? And then with an upstroke, you'll want to write with very, very light pressure going up. So you start at the baseline, and then you kind of bend it somewhere in between, and then go up until you reach the X height. So as you can see, I'm creating very thin lines. There's no thickness to it. And my nib is facing this slant right here. The width is pretty flexible, but right now, since we're practicing, I'm making it exactly 1 unit wide, which is the distance between these 2 strokes right here, these 2 slant guides right here. The moment you add pressure to this, you will see a thicker stroke like this, okay? Or sometimes if your angle is incorrect like this, you'll find it's also quite thick. So again, you want to keep it very light, kind of like you're just tiptoeing onto the paper, okay? So that's the leading line. Then the underturn, we start with pressure right at the very top. So it really opens up that nib shape. And then you're 4/5 the way down, you'll want to decrease pressure and then go up with very light pressure. So you can see that the thick part is only from this part to this, okay? Again, you want to increase pressure and go up. Increase pressure and go up. Increase pressure, decrease pressure, go up. Increase pressure, decrease pressure, and then go up. You always want to double check that your angle is correct as well. Because for example, the moment I write with my pen like this, it makes a stroke really thick on the bottom and also thick on the top like this, okay? It ends up becoming thicker at this bottom part here. So you'll want to make sure your angle is correct. If you are left-handed, you can also do the same thing in terms of making sure your angles are correct, except that, of course, your pen is facing this way and you might need to tilt your paper the other way. It might be easier for you to do. I am not left-handed, but I'm just following the strokes like this. Then of course, we've got the stem, which is that last little bit here. So very similar instructions to this underturn, except that now instead of going to the baseline, we're actually going below the baseline to the secondary baseline. And instead of going all the way up to the X height, we're actually stopping right about here. Okay. Increasing pressure, going up. Applying ink again. So you're actually not using a ton of ink through this exercise at all. Just kind of going through it one stroke at a time. So you want to make sure as well that right at the very top here, you press before you drag that pressure down, because you'll want to make sure you have a nice big top. If you kind of slowly increase pressure, you'll have, okay. Increasing pressure, going up. Applying ink again. So you're actually not using a ton of ink through this exercise at all. Just kind of going through it one stroke at a time. So you want to make sure as well that right at the very top here, you press before you drag that pressure down, because you'll want to make sure you have a nice big top. If you kind of slowly increase pressure, you'll have a pointy top. So you'll want it to be nice and square at the very top. The practice drills are really important because you put together essentially these strokes in order to create the letters. And all the letters have a little bit of these practice strokes put together. Okay, so for example, this letter U, we combine the leading line, the underturn, and the stem to create the letter U. So we start with that leading line going up, then we create an underturn, then we create a stem. So it's absolutely okay to pause in between the strokes. You don't need to rush. It's okay for your nib to lift up from the paper. You don't need to go and finish the stroke right away. The reason behind this is because sometimes we are so used to rushing. Calligraphy is a lot more like you are painting a letter rather than you are writing it. So think about the aesthetic, the shapes, the width of the letters, the height, making it look good. Okay, and it's a lot more of a meditative practice as well. I like to breathe in as I go for the upstroke. Nice deep breath. Exhale for the downstroke. You can feel your shoulders coming down as you create these strokes so that you are not rushing through them. Okay, and the reason why I have put some spacing in between here as well is so that you can start creating the stroke on your own. So you can practice with the same practice drills, right? In order to create this U shape. So that's how I break down the letter U. I pretty much do the same thing for my course, where I break down the letters to show you guys kind of how it works. I think the cool part is that you can watch and rewatch the videos anytime you would like. And of course, right afterwards, if you come into our membership as well, I can check your homework and really troubleshoot with you with the letters. I personally believe that being able to check your homework and practice together. We have live sessions as well where we practice the letters together. It really helps set my course apart from other people's calligraphy courses because it's a two-way program. We're not simply giving you a video to watch and figure it out on your own. Rather, we really want this to be a two-way experience for you to learn how to do modern calligraphy and to get the feedback you need in order to improve your letters. So just like that, we were able to finish this entire worksheet, learning the letter U. I also like to use a piece of tissue and a bit of water to just clean out my nib when I'm done or taking a break. I also highly recommend doing some stretches after writing, especially if you've been writing for about 15 to 20 minutes or half an hour, and your shoulders as well. I'll also link in the calligraphy stretches video below, and that way you guys can check it out. I personally recommend it to really help release the tension that sometimes we have from writing. I hope you guys enjoyed this little session, and I hope you guys can join us in our online courses as well. If you have any questions, don't forget that you can always write a comment or send me a DM on Instagram at Written Word Calligraphy, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye for now.